Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's such an honor for me to be here and just address to you something which I'm very passionate about. And what can be better than that, talking about music and the experiences that we've had in the past few, I would say about 30 years or so that I've been in Delhi. For me, it's such a wonderful journey. I mean, I started off as a youngster, very passionate about music. I happen to come from a place called Nagaland. For people who don't know Nagaland, it's one of the states in the Northeast. I'm sure a lot of people know about that. Tribal. A lot of music in our culture. And therefore, when we came to a place like Bangalore, when I went down for my pre-university studies and then came up to St. Stephen's College to finish my graduation, music was so much an integral part of my early years, in whether it was in the schools or whether it's in the pre-university, university. And it is so even now, a lot of young people from the Northeast. So without spending much of our time in self-introduction, I'd just like to go on a little bit of a brief of what I have written about in terms of what music and its choir music in churches and schools. And I also like to speak a little about what music does to young minds in terms of whether it's in schools or even in organizations such as the churches and para organizations. Music is a powerful medium that has capacity not only to create and to express emotions, but also to evoke powerful responses from its audience. It is an art that reaches the emotion. It transcends all barriers of language, culture, music education, heightens the emotional quotient in children, exposes them to the world around them. A world of work, culture, intellectual activity, and human evolution. As one of the very prominent leaders in the past, Gerald Ford, a former president of USA, says, a world of work, culture, intellectual activity, and human evolution. And the future of our nation depends on providing our children with a complete education that includes music. Exposure to a variety of sounds and rhythm is critical to cognitive development in children, and varied exposures leading to language proficiency, reasoning, and temporal reasoning. Almost everyone enjoys music, whether by listening, singing, or playing an instrument. And since nearly the beginning of human history, music has been used as a force for healing. Aristotle taught about when we hear music and poetry, our very soul is altered. And from Hippocrates to Native American medicine men, people have long used singing and playing instruments to cure. And in the Northeast, we have a lot of the cultural, what we have today is in the form of music. Everything centered around music, whether it was, the tribals in the Northeast going for headhunting, for example, or whether it was a collective work in the farms, for example, going out for fishing, hunting, everything was through communication, through music. A lot of our folks' stories, for example, is also narrated in the form of music. And this is the kind of rich traditions that we have even in places like India. And this is across the world that you can see, especially with a lot of the indigenous people, where you have music playing a very important role in their life. And why is music education so important to schools and the churches, and what are its benefits? I'd like to delve a little bit about what is music all about and how it influences our young minds. And then I'd like to go about what is the situation that we have in place in our context in India. While participating in music activities, children are also enhancing physical, language, and social emotional development. In today's world of high-stake tests, many are using music enhancements for development as a rationale for including music in the curriculum. Music training develops language and reasoning. Students who have early musical training will develop the area of the brain related to language and reasoning. The left side of the brain is better developed with music, and songs can help imprint informations of young minds. Studies have also shown that having music at an early stage also gives some form of mastery of memorization, for example. Even when performing with sheet music, musicians are constantly using their memory to perform. And skills of memorization can serve students well in education and beyond. It really does have its plus points when it comes to the other academics. Students learn to improve their work, promoting craftsmanship, for example. Students learn to want to create good work instead of mediocre work, and this desire can be applied to all subjects of study. Today, if you see in a lot of schools, even in Delhi, we have music which is an integral part in terms of, whether it's competitions or whether it's any form of increased coordination. Students who practice with musical instruments can improve their hand and eye coordination, just like playing music or playing sports. And children can develop more motor skills when playing music. Children can stay engaged in schools. Emotional development. Music contributes immensely to the emotional development of children, leaving with a sense of fulfillment. Besides developing empathy towards cultures, they also tend to have higher esteem and are better at coping with anxiety. In our experiences, when we have seen, for example, even choirs, when we have our own local choirs, when we are, learning new songs, different languages, for example, it can bring about a lot of understanding of different cultures. Recently, we have been doing a lot of other, songs from other cultures. For example, recently we have started learning a song in Spanish, in Basque language, in Latin, German, French. Now, these are some areas where students can learn varieties in terms of pattern recognition, emotional development, fine-tune auditionary skills. Besides the usual things where we talk about music as a relaxing factor, students can fight stress by learning to play music, soothing music. Musical instruments can teach discipline. So these are some of the often repeated kind of advantages that we talk about when we have a music curriculum or an education, music curriculum in schools. Now I'd just like to talk about what is the present situation that we have in our context in India. More than just music, research has found that learning music facilities learning other subjects and enhances skills that children inevitably use in other areas. For years, music classes in India have been what we call the ugly duckling of the school curriculums. A lot of complaints in our recent experiences where we have music teachers in schools where basic facilities are not given. We have schools where we have 3,000 plus students and we have just one music teacher to look after that. That is not doing justice to this wonderful art that we are talking about, music education in schools. The last course, it can be, for example, a last course to be added just as an afterthought. It can be the first course that needs to be cut because the school doesn't have budgets, for example. No proper infrastructures, no proper curriculum. These are some of the problems that we face as far as the music education is concerned in our place. They have always taken second place to traditional academic classes. Despite the fact that we talked about what music is and what is the advantages that it can have vis-a-vis other subject matters, somehow it has taken a kind of a backseat when it comes to traditional academic classes. Music, however, has proved itself to be extremely beneficial from time and time again, which has an undeniable improvement in grades regarding traditional academic classes to glowing remarks from music students everywhere. In an ever-changing world, the addition of music education in school needs to be next on the academic agenda. While many arguments have been made to include music as an optional subject in schools in India, there has been no specific curriculum for students when they start their formal education at the age of 3. We take for granted the kind of music that we have in our churches, especially with our rich Christian background. But a lot of, when you really were to see in the areas of the school, for example, there is no formal curriculum, even the formal curriculum, that you can call it as, a music education program that you have. So in the absence of that, what has happened is that there is a plethora of a freestyle teaching of music in a lot of the schools. We have a lot of teachers, for example, from the Northeast community, who may not be qualified. Just because of the fact that they've been able to sing some songs, some choruses, they are thrown into an area where they become music teachers. We have had experiences where we have met up with principals and we have met up with heads of institutions. And we have told them the need for having such kind of curriculum development for music. And many a times we have come across situations where we have even and therefore we have come across a lot of situations where, in the absence of such accredited curriculum system, the music education system, as far as the schools and in churches also, suffers. The quality of choral singing, for example, in churches have degraded over the years. Is notwithstanding the fact that a lot of churches, a lot of organizations have in the recent past tried to bring about some semblance of formal education systems. Some associations and churches have started introducing, for example, music theory, so that the quality of choral singing in the churches can improve. We have so much of varieties of even the hymns being sung in the churches, which is totally different from the original way that the composer himself has composed. So given that situation, there is an acute need for having a proper curriculum for music in the schools. A concrete curriculum and methodology to make a world of difference. That's what's required. To provide students with a complete music education, it is essential that the curriculum includes music of all styles, forms, periods, and cultures. We've had experiences again where we come to a situation where schools, for example, they have certain systems in place. You could call it censorships of lyrics, for example, but somehow in this environment, our teachers have done wonderfully well in terms of teaching them some of the choruses and some of the rich music that we have in our church traditions, where schools have picked up these songs, for example, for the assembly, for group singing. So I'd just like to conclude, and I'd like to leave the rest of the time for question and answer sessions, where I think we have a lack of time. But anyway, I just want to say that this, as far as the curriculum is concerned in India, we have a really big lack of music curriculum, which needs to be, introduced at the earliest. I think there is an acute need for having a curriculum system where we can introduce into our schools as well as in the churches. Thank you.
Yaden.